Hello, everyone. Elizabeth here, and I'm so glad to introduce you today to Marcia Stepanek. She's founder of Brand Stories, and she's a professor at Columbia University in their graduate nonprofit management program. And she'll be joining us for a two-part series on crisis communications. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I want to ask you, Marcia, what is your experience with stakeholder engagement? Because that's definitely going to play a role.
Yeah, so my specialty in my consultancy, strategy consultancy, and I also do production as well, has always been rooted in kind of this evolving digital space, and that's where I live in terms of engagement and in terms of storytelling and narratives, change narratives now. And so, in working with many clients to use these tools to engage and to find in this kind of new power world and old power world, this new middle ground, that's been, I'd say, more than half of my consulting work lately. And so, that's stakeholder engagement. It's a fascinating time. And so rather than feel like we're walking on ice, there are tremendous opportunities to partner, to find other ways than certain social media channels, and really kind of humanize what we do in even more ways than we're used to in a noisy, very anxious world.
Well, that's good to know. That you're dealing with it on a daily basis, and there's plenty of hope.
Yes.
What's one thing that participants will be able to do right after the webinar, whether it's that same day, that same week, that same month? What's the one thing that they know that they'll be able to do?
Yeah, so we're going to focus a little bit on kind of this. Okay, so that's great, Marcia. Now what?
Exactly.
So we work through, it's kind of a new framework for going back, and it's part of the assessment phase of what your nonprofit is facing and how to create those conversations internally, spearheaded from the communications and marketing side, but in a way that brings some kind of internal collaboration as well. What we're also seeing secondarily is as diversity increases in the workplace and as our organizations are becoming less fortress-like and more open, we have wonderful new voices and new perspectives coming to the table. But there is a downside that some organizations that are not used to, yet anyway, managing that kind of change, managing those kind of conversations and sometimes conflicting perspectives. So that's kind of part of the shift to the new middle ground. It's happening externally, but also internally as well. And so we will give some tools for how to deal with that, how to assess it, and then some tips and tricks that they can at least start to use.
Great. Everyone will know where they can start.
Yes, exactly. The on-ramp is there.
Great. So, Marcia, I love our audience to get to know our presenters a little bit more on a personal basis, so I wanted to ask you, do you have any favorite books or recent reads that you've come across?
Yeah, there's a recent read called Winners Take All by Anand Giriharadas, who is a cultural critic. And he speaks in this book mainly as there are so many people trying to do good in the world. He explores why there hasn't been more collective impact. And he cites elitism in our sector, lots of do-gooders, but without the necessary, in his view, engagement with others. And it's very interesting. In a lot of my classes, we have one foot in the old power world and one foot in the new power world. And so much a part of the work going forward will be, as institutions and as nonprofits, how can we change the way we do our work to engage others and more people around our missions and the work to measure the influence of our causes and hear new voices. And so that book is all about that. And then the second one I highly recommend is New Power, a book by Henry Timms. who had been leading the 92nd Street Y, and he just got hired as CEO of Lincoln Center.
Wow.
So it's a good read. It's a quick read, and it goes into hashtag campaigns and all of the new digital power stuff. So together, they're good books about how we need to change and kind of the road ahead.
Great. So if you want to do any pre-reading before a webinar, those sound like great recommendations. Again, we're really going to be talking about how to bulletproof your mission on March 7th. Again, that's part 1 of our 2-part crisis communications series. So make sure that you register by February 27th to take advantage of early bird pricing for both of the webinars. The second one will be on April 11th. We're so excited for everyone to join us, so please come with your questions as we will have a Q&A at the end. And if you can't attend live, you will get a copy of the recording to watch on your own time. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcia.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you.
Bye, everyone.